Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly energy forecast. So, in this session, we're going to be having a little look at the cycles of the moon, the energy of the season that we're in, and also the astrological transits that will be influencing us this week. But also, I guess, this is an opportunity for us to check in on the energetic weather, the potential for what is coming, so we know how best to prepare ourselves, or to be prepared, so we know how best to respond in the moment and make the most out of whatever opportunities are being provided for us at that time, be it flow, be it points of tension, whatever it is that we that is bringing to us, that we can be aware on how we can really make the most of it. So, bit of a big week in terms of changing tone. A lot more ease and flowing aspects than we had last week. Last week was a pretty big full moon. So for those of you who did listen to the forecast last week and kind of have something to share, I'd be really, really curious to see how that full moon showed up in your life. There was quite a lot of tension there. And what I noticed, particularly in my personal life as well, that it did bring tension, but having the awareness around the fact that that full moon had the potential to bring tension enabled me to see what potential was in that tension. So there was a real opportunity, especially with that balance between Aries, the sign of self, and Libra, the sign of the other, to kind of an encouragement, because I had the awareness around that, to kind of come at that and see it from a different vantage point. Whereas usually maybe it would be switching straight into anger, and there was so much awareness around the potential for that situation and what it was trying to teach, that I was able to approach that situation in a really, really different way. So I really did experience that last week. I did expect to, because it was hitting my chart quite personally, but also it was just interesting to really see the benefit of knowing what the potential of that period of time could have brought, and being aware of the fact that I could choose to respond in a slightly different way that probably made the outcome of that situation way more helpful than it would have done had I not. So without further ado, let's get into the energy of this week. So we are now past the peak. So every month we have the lunar cycle that is influencing us. We had the full moon last week, and the full moon is like the peak of an energetic cycle. We're now past that. We're about 4 days past that. So we're in a waning gibbous, heading towards the last quarter moon. So this is very aligned with the time of year, right? So sometimes when we're in a first quarter moon, that's a time for action and moving forward and taking action on your goals. And when we're in a season of winter or autumn, sometimes that energy is a little bit polarizing. We're being pulled in two different directions, because we're being called to go inwards, and we have outward energy influencing us as well. This week, we have the opposite. So the energy is beginning to descend. We're heading towards the last quarter moon, which is associated with autumn, the season of letting go. And we're really transitioning now. So we've got the energy of the moon aligned with the energy of the season. And we are moving into Scorpio season on Tuesday. And Scorpio is it's kind of like the middle of the autumn, and it is like the most intense season of the autumn. So we have the cardinal seasons that begin a new season. So we've had Libra season, which is the balance, it's just scales, it's light, it's the balance between light and dark. See, Libra season is beautiful. And the beginning of autumn, I was literally talking about this yesterday, is so beautiful. There's so much orange and all the different colors. And then after a while that passes, and then you see more of the death and the decay. And I guess almost it gets a bit darker, right? The nights are darker. There's more kind of decomposition happening, and that's when things start to get a little bit darker and a little bit uglier, but in a good way. There's never good or bad in astrology. There's only out of balance manifestations of certain energies and imbalanced manifestations of certain energies. So Scorpio allows us to go to the depths of things. It wants us to kind of get dirty and understand the shadow and really kind of dig deep, right? So that really is the benefit of this season. So we've got the Scorpio energy that's very autumnal, very it wants to go dark. It's very mystical. It kind of connects with the beyond. We've got the autumn season kind of coming into full, its fullest expression right now, really so that's a lot of, again, letting go, decomposition, shedding, transformation. Scorpio, the ancient ruler of Scorpio, is the phoenix rising from the ashes. So that's all about again, transformation, death, rebirth, and we have the last quarter moon. So we've got a real opportunity here to kind of kickstart and really connect with that autumn energy. This is really where the intensity begins, and we can really make the most of this season. So let's break down the astrology for this week, because there's a couple of really nice flowing transits that are quite supportive, and also a little bit of a tense point in the middle, which is kind of a little bit of an echo from that full moon that we had last week. So I want to unpack this a little bit and help people understand how you can kind of break this down day by day and understand how to work with the energy in the best possible way. So on Monday, which is today, the 24th of October, Mercury in Scorpio trines Saturn in Pisces. So this Saturn is the long-term. Mercury is the planet of communication. It's the translator. It is about the mind, thoughts. So this is a really great day for long-term planning. So, and also what I would say, because they're in water signs as well, so Saturn likes a plan. Mercury can like cognitively make the plan, but I guess in water signs there's a little bit of a difference here, whereas if it was an air, it would be a very logical plan. If it was an earth, it'd be a very practical plan, right? But when being in water, I would almost like say that, like, if you are kind of leaning into this energy, playing around with it, making the most of it, is kind of take a little bit of a fresh perspective and bring almost like a different intention to how you work with this energy. So maybe allowing your intuition or your creativity to take the lead while you're making plans for the future and the long term. So when Mercury and Saturn are in a trine, that's the most supportive aspect in astrology, the most beneficial aspect in astrology. So they're really very much supporting each other. So I would really make the most of this energy if you have the time to. It'll definitely last for a couple of days before, a couple of days after. So, you know, don't worry if you don't get it bang on the day on Monday. But I would really I think tuning in and dropping into your body and almost allowing that to lead the way, or even when you're making plans, I would almost imagine yourself having done the thing and then check in with how it would make you feel, because sometimes that can give you clarity on whether that's like a mental I should want this, but do I actually want this? Will it bring me fulfillment? So sometimes when we can play around with the imagination and allow that to help us get clarity and really feel into decisions and see how it would feel, it can often really give us a very, very clear perspective on what is best to move forward and what's not. Even planning for the long term as well, a really cool thing to do to kind of activate that creativity and that potential for creativity is to create a vision board, or even draw your future, or obviously making concrete plans with Saturn there is important, absolutely, but bring a flavor of creativity to that and really make the most of this flowing, watery, intuitive energy that is supporting that as well. So then Tuesday, we have a little bit of a tense moment. So, well, a little bit, maybe a lot. So Tuesday, the 22nd, the Sun in Libra squares Pluto in Capricorn. So this is continuing on a little bit of the tension with the full moon. Do you remember when I was talking about last week, for those of you who watched, but this full moon was happening. So full moons happen in the opposite signs of the zodiac. And then we also had Mars in Cancer and Pluto in Capricorn creating a cardinal grand cross in astrology. So that's really where we're having pulls of tensions in all four different angles and directions in the astrological wheel. So this week we have a square between Libra, which is where the full moon was, which was where the sun was, which created the full moon, and Pluto. So it's going exact this week. So it's a little bit of an echo of what was happening last week, because they'll be hitting similar parts of your chart, but just with less tension, because we don't have the moon and Mars involved this time as well. So this is really about personal power and personal transformation. The sun is the fullest expression of you. Pluto brings death, rebirth, transformation. But this isn't something that's new. This is ending. So we've had Pluto in Capricorn roughly for the last 20 years. It's kind of been going back and forth in Aquarius now for the last 2 years, maybe a year and a half or so. So it's definitely been moving on its way out of Capricorn. It's just about to leave Capricorn for good, and it won't return for another 200 years or so, something like that. This is also the last square the sun is going to make to Pluto, which has been making squares in cardinal signs to Pluto for the last 20 years or so. This is the last one it's ever going to make. So Pluto brings transformation, brings drastic endings, drastic new beginnings. And I think it's a lot about personal power. Pluto is power, and then the sun is self, right? So this really is an opportunity to step into personal power, personal transformation. And it's almost something that might have been a journey for you for the last 20 years or so, particularly for those of people who have got any planets from like 28 to 28 degrees of the cardinal signs. So Libra, Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. This will be working with you a bit more personally, so you might feel this a little bit more than those people who don't have any planets in those signs. But definitely just something to kind of be aware of. It might be a bit of an echo of what came up at that full moon, but it's the ending of a journey. So this is the themes of endings, of transformation, and when this is happening at 29 degrees of these signs. So in each astrology sign, there's 30 degrees. So generally planets will move forwards. Obviously, sometimes they move backwards because of retrogrades or the nodes move backwards, but generally planets move forwards. So they'll travel from 1 degree all the way to 29 degrees, and then they'll pass into the next sign and go onwards. So when we have transits that are happening at the end of signs, particularly when both of those planets are then going to move out of that sign, it's the ending of a journey. It signifies the ending of a journey, and we're not going to have another square from Pluto in cardinal signs for another 40 years. So this is significant. This is the ending of a cycle. So there is definitely themes of endings, like autumn is endings. The last quarter moon is the beginning of an end. We've got Scorpio season, which is all about like death, rebirth, transformation. So there's so many ending themes happening this week. So for those of you who are on the membership, in this week's recommended classes, which I'll leave below this video, there's a lot of practices that I've recommended about like rituals to help you transition properly into the autumn season, and then a couple of sessions around really kind of digging deep and understanding what's ready to be released, almost like a threshold moment in that new class that we'll be releasing next week, which I'll unpack a little bit more a little bit later in the video. So it's definitely a time just to be present with what's coming up, and be aware that because this is an ending, we really have an opportunity this week to shift through something. So, make the most of it. If you have any practices that you use, like EFT, meditation, cord cutting meditation, something like that, just to kind of help something shift through, especially because we have a lot of light around at the moment. So full moons cast a light, they help us to get clarity. But then especially the first few days of this week, we're still kind of coming off the back of that full moon before we hit the last quarter moon around Thursday. So we still kind of have that bit where we're coming down off the peak of the mountain, and we can still see a lot. We have a higher vantage point at this week still. So there's a lot of potential to get clarity on what needs to go, and the energy to support in actually letting it go. A lot of energy to support it. So there's real potential this week. So if you're feeling like you're in that place, if you're noticing things, if you're feeling a bit full, if you're feeling like you're kind of stuck and you don't know how to move forward, it could be that you need to shift something before you can then step into that new cycle. So again, like, this is not like you must dive deep and unpick all of the wounds if that's not a place that you're in, but pay attention to how you're feeling and where you are. Does it feel right for you to enter and make the most of this energy of shedding, of letting go? Or do you just need to be present with it and ride it out and do so less intentionally? You know you better than anyone else, so trust that. Okay, and then Tuesday the 22nd, same day as that sun squaring Libra, we have the sun entering Scorpio. So we've kind of gone into this a little bit already, but this is transitioning from light, airy Libra season, right? Like Libra season begins autumn, but it's balanced between light and dark. It's airy, it's ruled by Venus, so it's about beauty, the beautiful transformation of the trees around us, and then we get into the deep dark Scorpio shit, right? So there is a lot happening, like there is that big transition this week, and it's going to feel like a big shift in tone. We're going from like Libra season that's all about harmony and like relating with others to deep, dark, mystical Scorpio season. So this is about diving deep, uncovering truths, connecting with your intuition. It can be emotional intensity. This is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. This is going to connect us deeply with our emotions, so we have visibility over them, we can see them, and we understand what needs to be shifted and what needs to be directed, right? So there's nothing bad about this. If you are someone that has quite intense emotions, this is potential for you to potentially like get them heightened, but there is always opportunity within the energy that's available. So it depends how you want to work with it. If you're someone that has heightened emotion and that's something that you find a little bit like a tense point, like you struggle with it a little bit, actually maybe grounding is really good for you right now, or maybe some fire practices to kind of lift you out of the depths of where you're going could be good. So, you know, I'm going to recommend some practices below this video for those people who are on the membership, but what I would always encourage you to do is pay attention to who you are and how you receive energy, because that will depend what practices you need to navigate things. And if anyone is struggling, just drop us a message on the membership platform and we'll be able to help you out. Great. So yes, so it's all about diving deep. Like Scorpio is ruled by Mars and it likes to penetrate. Like Scorpio is very penetrative. It can see to the depths of things. That's why they're kind of like, can't really fool a Scorpio. They can see. It's almost like X-ray vision. Like the Scorpio, I always say like Sagittarius wants to expand to the edges of the universe, and Scorpio wants to like dig underneath it, or burrow down and like find out what's under every rock and every nook and cranny. And like, so it really is the potential to go deep, to understand what's under there, where your shadow is, where you're holding yourself back, what needs to be shifted and transformed. And then finally, and the last aspect of note this week is on Thursday, the 24th of October, Mars in Cancer sextiles Uranus in Taurus. So again, a sextile is a supportive aspect, not like a square or an opposition where there's more tension. So this is the energy of breakthroughs, potentially where you felt stuck. Mars is the planet of action. Uranus is the planet of like, it's like the lightning bolt. It's like sudden transformation. It can be a little bit of a rebel as well, but because Mars is the planet of taking action, it almost feels like if you've been physically feeling like you're walking through mud in an area of life, that you could feel a bit of a shift in that very suddenly this week. There really is that potential. Like sextile is a supportive aspect, not as much of a trine. There's a lot more flow, but sextiles are still very supportive. And it could be a sudden surge of energy to take action, maybe where you've been feeling a little bit flat, a little bit demotivated. There could be a sudden surge of energy to take action, but because Uranus brings like radical change and it can be quite sudden, it could almost be like a real change in direction. And I actually would maybe say, because of the energy, like that energy this week, it could be something that's beneficial. So again, check in with your intuition. There's lots of Scorpio energy around, so there's plenty of that to go around at the moment, but get really honest with yourself. You know, if you're feeling pulled in another direction, there is a transit right now that's saying that this is a good thing to do, but always check in with your inner compass first and make sure that it is the right path for you to go down. So that was a lot, but I feel like it's a bit of a mixed bag this week. Lots of flow, lots of harmony, lots of energy lining up. So there's less polarization. Like last week was polarizing. Whereas this week, energy is aligned, things are flowing. There's just that little bit of a tense point with that Pluto Sun square. Again, it's the ending of something. I feel like it's been something that's probably been present in your life if there is any tension for a while. And it really is the ending, and it's the opportunity to kind of move forward, stepping over the threshold. So I'll leave some practices for those of you in the membership below. We're releasing an autumn transition class. So usually we do a class on the equinox, but because we've got quite a few of them in the library, we wanted to do something a little bit different, which was more transitioning into the autumn season from a point of intensity. So almost like a Samhain ritual, which Leanne filmed for you over the weekend. So I'm going to be releasing that today. That'd be a really beautiful practice, particularly because the energy is so aligned right now with all of that autumn energy to kind of really, it's like an initiation essentially. So it'd be a really, really great practice to tune into the energy and really notice what's present for you right now. We also have a tap on opening up to transformation, which is a really nice kind of thing to do, especially if you've not been too connected with the autumn season yet. Then that tap, there is potential there for you to start connecting with that and making the most of the energy that's around this week, and that will be with us through the month as well, through the whole month of Scorpio season. Another one, journaling and pranayama on what life is asking you to deal with, so you can start to get clarity when we have that light and that higher vantage point around. And then also what I'm going to leave below is a link to the emotions to embody and transmute library. So there's EFT tapping sessions and meditations in there on each different emotion. Like Scorpio season will bring up feelings and they will need to be addressed potentially. So what I would really recommend is, instead of like recommending a specific tap. I am going to mention the overwhelm one there, because I think in our last full moon coaching call, for those of you on the membership, overwhelm was definitely a bit of a theme coming up for people. So I think that's a really great staple to lean on, especially if you're feeling like the shift in Scorpio season is bringing up a lot. Definitely get yourself to a state of peace before you then start looking. Making sure you have a strong grounded foundation before you then kind of start looking and digging. However, there's lots of sessions in that emotions to body, embody and transmute library that can be really, really helpful. So, you know, pay attention to what's coming up, right? Use your inner compass to choose what practices are needed for you. There's a full library, well, there's 4 full libraries there that can be really, really, really supportive. And again, if you need any guidance on what to work with, what to draw on, if you're feeling overwhelmed, then please let us know. If not, then membership guys, we've got the new moon coaching call coming up next week, where we can kind of unpack that and give you a bit of a plan on how to move forward with some somatics and different techniques. So lots of love, everybody. For those of you who are joining me on Instagram, I'd love to hear any stories of how you received the full moon. If you've got any things to share, or, you know, any takeaways that you had from this forecast. And I will see you all next week for another session. Lots of love.